So today I am interviewing Tim Crakanthorp, who is the New South Wales Shadow Skills Minister and for TAFE and the Shadow Minister for Tertiary Education. Tim, can you describe your experience of working in the New South Wales community college sector?
Yeah, sure, Don. Look, I was very privileged and lucky to work at WEA in Sydney for a number of years, which gave me a wonderful grounding in adult education. You know, I met and worked with people from such diverse backgrounds, and it also opened my eyes to a great variety of people who study in the community college sector and just how important it is for them to gain skills to improve their life. And either their everyday life, or to study a language, to travel, or to study computing, for example, to improve their work prospects. And I also taught a course at Macarthur Community College, and that again was a great insight into how you can help improve people's lives. And I think, you know, that's such an exciting occupation and a wonderful thing to be able to do. I also come from a family of teachers. My wife's a teacher and my parents were teachers and my grandmother was a teacher as well. So I've got a great passion for education and vocational education in particular.
Oh, excellent. Well, given that background, this of course has been a very busy time for emphasis on Australian skills and training, including the recent Jobs and Skills Summit. Now, if New South Wales Labor wins government in the March 2023 election and you become skills minister, what would your priorities be and what would you do first?
Well, we've got a skills crisis in the state at the moment, so I really want to see more focus and more resources go into vocational education. Retention rates in courses are very, very low at the moment, in some courses more than other. But for example, during COVID, the government paid for an enormous number of courses to be put on, and only 20% of the people undertaking those courses actually finished them. That's, you know, that's a terrible retention rate. 80% of people didn't get through them. So I want to see more people start vocational education courses and finish them. So, you know, perhaps we need some incentives there. We certainly need to look at it as an issue so people do gain their full qualification. I'd also like to see more apprentices and trainees actually finish their study because, you know, unfortunately, quite often the incentives aren't there for the employers to keep them long enough. There's often a bit of churn, and I think it's so important for young kids and people who are looking to retrain to actually gain that qualification as well.
Oh, thank you. Another question, fast forwarding 6 months ahead. If you become New South Wales Skills Minister, would you anticipate changing any aspects of the New South Wales Adult and Community Education or ACE programs, how they're funded and how they're run?
Look, you know, I'd love to work with the sector to improve it, to deliver on the goals that I've talked about above. And, you know, I'd be very open and interested in what you and all the people listening to this actually think, and, you know, what they'd like to see in March 2023 in terms of policies and election commitments as well. So I might actually put that question back to you, Don, and the organisation and everyone there to, you know, communicate with me, perhaps through you, as to what they'd like to see. I mean, I would like to see a lot more focus on vocational education as opposed to university, for example. I think we need more flexible pathways for younger students as well as mature students wanting to get back to work, to be able to get to work, and that's usually through vocational education. I think too many kids have gone into university education and it's not for them. You know, there's been such a push and such an emphasis for that I think a lot of people have missed out on their real calling by going into tertiary education, then dropping out and then being quite lost. So, you know, I'd like to change that, and that's just one more thing. But I'm putting the call out. You know, we've got an election in just over 6 months, so I'm very keen to hear from the sector, vocational education, as to what you guys would love to see.
Thank you. Now, here's a big picture question for you. As we know, Australia has entered a period of almost full employment. Has that changed your thinking as to how we tackle skills and training in New South Wales? And if so, how?
Well, it does offer more challenge, as notionally there are fewer people looking to train, but there are a lot of people who haven't been working who will now be very keen to work because the incentives are there. A lot of employers are offering more than they have in the past, higher rates, packages. You only got to look at the hospitality industry, for example, and people are desperate to have trained employees who are committed to organisations. So there's that. And I also think there are a lot of people taking this time as an opportunity to upskill. They've got a job, but they can see a lot better jobs are out there, and a lot of jobs are on Seek and other places, and this is a good opportunity for them to do vocational education training to get more skills and get that better job. And I think particularly given the cost of living is going up so rapidly at the moment, in addition to interest rates. So I think there'll be a lot more pressure for people to actually, unfortunately, perhaps get that second job and retrain and train up. So that's one aspect. I also think there are so many opportunities moving forward, particularly as we go into an era of environmental change and a lot of focus on renewables. For example, I'm here in the Hunter, in the world's biggest coal port at Newcastle, but we want to change that, and we're going to put a lot of emphasis on hydrogen, on wind farms offshore, for example. They produce an enormous amount of jobs in terms of billions of dollars to get something like that going offshore. Also, being labour, we want to see a lot more manufacturing jobs onshore in New South Wales, in Australia. I mean, we saw ferries being manufactured offshore. We've seen light rail. We've seen 65 train sets of heavy rail. I mean, just imagine if they were manufactured here, you'd have billions of dollars worth of investment in our local skill set and all the multiplier effect of that on other industries and businesses. So I think that policy will certainly give a big demand for people with high skills. And as we near full employment, we're going to see a lot more people training up. And hopefully, we'll all be in a good position to train them to improve their skills and get better jobs.
Oh, thank you. Some really good thoughts there. And look, a final question for you. Do you have any other messages for the CCA conference today?
Just keep the passion and keep your love of education. It's pretty hard in some sectors, particularly in TAFE and in the education sector for teachers. And I know in the vocational education sector and the CCA conference and all your attendees, it's not an easy job at times, but it's a very rewarding one. So hang in there and enjoy that as much as you can, and the pleasure of teaching people and your love of education. So I pass that on, and I just go back to that other point. Please feed information to me on what you want to see and what you think is important for me and for our party to go to the election with. So thanks very much, Don.
Thank you. I've just interviewed Tim Crakanthorp, the Shadow Minister for Skills and TAFE and the Shadow Minister for Tertiary Education in New South Wales. Thank you again, Tim.
Thank you, Don.